Chapter 379 Jiyu Chengye's Marriage. 3. To gather such a table of food in this disastrous year was truly rare. It also indirectly stated that this marriage was respectful to the Yu family. After the meal, Ju Ying, Jiyu Ziqiu, and Jiyu Zishan went to the new house to see Yu Haitang, the Yu family's eldest daughter, after sending off the happy Yu family members. She had a scholarly air about her in addition to her delicate features. She seemed to be a piece of jade from a humble family, and it was no wonder that Mrs. Liu and Jiyu Chengye were satisfied with this marriage. After a few polite words, Ju Ying and Jiyu Ziqiu left. "Why didn't you bring your children here?" Ju Ying turned her head and asked Jiyu Ziqiu. "She is too young. I was afraid she wouldn't be able to withstand the jolts of the journey, so I didn't bring her back." Jiyu Ziqiu then asked, "Aren't you planning to get any children?" "Let's wait. I'll bear one after the disasters are over." Ju Ying laughed. She took out a small and exquisite silver lock, about half a tael in size, and handed it to her after that. "It's for the child. I wish her a long and healthy life." "Thank you, on her behalf." Jiyu Ziqiu took it with a smile. On the other end, Hu Chun found Jiyu Chengrue and said, "Brother, the wild roses have already grown out these past 2 days. One wonder when we can pick it. Naturally before the flower bloomed. How about this? Get someone tomorrow morning to start picking at the location where the plant matured the earliest. I'll teach you how to deal with it after dinner. Also, you have to find some lime powder to make a clean and dry room so that it can be used to preserve the roses." "Understood. There's lime powder in the village. I'll get it when I get back." At this point, Hu Chun hesitated momentarily before asking, "What price do you plan to charge for this flower tea?" "As far as I know, ordinary chrysanthemum tea is sold in bulk at 100 copper per pound. Let's set the price for roses at 100 coppers for now. If they sell well this year, the price will go up. We'll set another price next year. What do you think?" "I can't thank you enough, brother. It's just a win-win situation." Over the next few days, Ju Ying went to the manor to help, while Jiyu Chengrue went to Sinan village to help with the roses. At the same time, the village also got busy. Some were planting white potatoes, and others sold white potato seedlings to other villages for 10 copper each. The Jiyu family had planted plenty of white sweet potatoes last season and made a small profit from selling the seedlings. Of course, the main buyers were their 3 sons-in-laws. In the blink of an eye, half a month had passed. Jiyu Chengrue came out of Sinan village one day and found that the number of soldiers outside the village had decreased by more than half. He immediately turned around and entered the manor to look for Manager Liu. "Uncle Liu, did General Zhong and the rest leave? Why are there less than half of them here?" "Not really." Manager Liu smiled bitterly and shook his head. "In many places, people are forcibly captured during conscription to be soldiers. Now, the country is plagued with many internal problems. Many refugees are rioting and even taking the opportunity to rebel. That's why General Zhong brought his men to help quell the rebellion." "Rebellion? But why? All these natural disasters have finally quelled, so why are these people instigating an uprising instead of going home to farm? There must be something to plant if these people want to farm. They should have harvested a batch of sweet potatoes in the south. We gave them so many seeds, some of them were sent to the north as military provisions, so." Jiyu Chengrue was speechless after hearing this. This was a dead end. No one could do anything about such a riot. "Don't tell anyone about this. If anyone asks, just say that we don't need so many people to guard this place. I'm afraid this matter can't be kept a secret. I'll hide it for as long as possible, so keep an eye on the refugees when you return. If there are any changes, let me know." "All right then, I'll go back then." Jiyu Chengrue turned around and went home after that. Chapter 380 Mother God's Manifestation. 1. In the evening, Ju Ying could only sigh silently after hearing the news. At the same time, she began to think about how she could secretly take out some food to calm the chaos. But before she could think of a solution, the refugees on the mountain learned of the news 3 days later. For a moment, there was a ruckus brewing. Jiyu Chengrue, who had sent children to keep an eye on them, immediately informed Manager Liu when he heard the news. After receiving the news, Manager Liu immediately went to the military camp outside and deployed the remaining 500 soldiers to surround the refugees. What do you mean by this? Can't we even go home? An old man looked at the soldiers armed with swords and immediately demanded. Sure, 111 send them to escort you home. Manager Liu nodded with a smile. If you stay here obediently, you'll be able to live, even though you'll suffer a little. Otherwise, are you sure you're not just delivering human meat back home? When the refugees heard this, they saw the soldiers eyeing them suspiciously, and they all became listless. More than half of their strong labor forces had been gone because of conscription and labor punishment. If there were any more losses, the elders, women, and children wouldn't even have a hope of living. As long as you stay here obediently, Manager Liu continued, we'll do our best to protect you. Otherwise, don't blame us for getting physical. After that, he brought half of the soldiers back, and the rest stayed where they were. What a terrible life. We're eating wild vegetables every day, so much so that we've turned green inside out. How are we going to live any longer? An old woman immediately collapsed to the ground and started wailing. Her cry immediately caused a commotion. However, they didn't know that if Zhu Ying hadn't scattered many wild vegetable seeds on the mountain back then, they wouldn't have even been able to eat wild vegetables. At that time, a young leader who was left behind stepped forward and said, "It's already good enough that you have the wild vegetables on the mountain to keep you alive. The people outside don't even have a leaf to eat. Even we only drink flour paste daily to fill our stomachs. Indeed, this year is not easy for anyone. Everyone must be content with what they have." Immediately, an officer chimed in. When the refugees heard this, they were indignant. They could clearly smell the smell of meat every few days, so how could these soldiers be drinking just flour paste daily? However, after a careful look, these refugees realized that these soldiers were all thin as sticks. Compared to them, they only looked slightly better and had stronger bodies. The refugees were in even more despair. These people were all the Third Prince's soldiers and were already in such poor conditions. What about the rioters and rebellion outside? They got listless when they thought of the rumors of humans eating humans. A group of superstitious old women began to kowtow to the Mother God in the Mother God temple. At that time, the Mother Goddess statue was much cleaner, but its appearance looked more dilapidated. This action of theirs also caused the elderly and young to do the same. A few old ladies even discussed taking out all their private savings, less than 200 coppers. They went to the town to buy some candles and incense and to offer prayers to the Mother God. They prepared 3 joss sticks daily and didn't dare to stop even once. 3 days later, when Zhu Ying was sleeping in the middle of the night, she suddenly felt her body warm and went into her interspace. However, she soon realized that something was wrong because she realized that she was as light as a feather. She looked down and realized her feet couldn't touch the ground. She floated like a ghost from TV shows. Zhu Ying broke out in a cold sweat. What was going on? Could it be that she was haunted? Chapter 381 Mother God's Manifestation 2. Are you confused? At this moment, a clear and ethereal voice sounded above her head. Zhu Ying immediately looked up and saw a figure that seemed to be about to disappear at any moment in the air, and she looked at her with a kind face. When she saw her dress, she was shocked. She then asked curiously, "Are you Mother God?" "You too. What do you mean?" "To put it bluntly, I am you, and you are my reincarnation." Zhu Ying was dumbfounded when she heard this. What? She had transmigrated here from the modern era. How did she have anything to do with Mother God? However, when she thought about how similar they looked, she felt they might be related somehow. Thus, she asked curiously, "What's going on? How are we?" "There's too little faith in this era. I don't have time to tell you more, and you should see for yourself." Mother God turned into a stream of light and flew into her forehead. Zhu Ying felt her body fill with power, and a series of memories followed. Only after the first fragments of memory were integrated did she discover that she was the reincarnation of Mother God. She predicted that this continent would experience a destructive disaster about 100 years ago. Later, Mother God traveled through space and time to find a way to resolve the problem. She saw the prosperity of modern times, especially the high-yield crops. About 30 years ago, she left a drop of her blood essence and implanted it in Ju Ying's mother's body. She also sealed her palace, this interspace, with an entire island in her soul with a teleportation array. Finally, she left a wisp of her soul on the island with the memories of her previous life. Mother God then reincarnated into the modern world. She had planned everything out. When she came over, the people's faith could resurrect that wisp of her soul. After fusing with it, she could use her interspace to stop this catastrophe. Who would have thought that after she had only disappeared for a few decades, the people's faith in her had rapidly declined to the point of none? This was why her plans had been delayed until today. Next came the information about the warehouse. It turned out that the warehouse was more than just a simple warehouse. It had a mapping relationship with each Mother God temple in this world. Not only could she know the people's demands through the warehouse, but she could send stuff through this warehouse to each Mother God temple. Of course, the corresponding Mother God temple must have had people who had faith in her. Otherwise, it would not be connected. She tried to check the rest of the memory fragments but found them inaccessible. Ju Ying couldn't help but mumble, "This is such a fantasy. I sure didn't expect to encounter such a thing. But why didn't you leave behind any martial arts secrets or the like to give yourself some protection?" She then shook her head and stopped thinking about it. Ju Ying then walked to outside of the warehouse. As expected, there was a bright spot in the warehouse. She immediately used her telekinesis to check it out and saw the scene inside the Mother God temple. As expected, many people were living in the Mother God temple, which was clean and tidy. There was an incense table in front of the Mother God statue, with incense burning on it. A few small fruits and a bowl of wild vegetable soup were also being offered. After that, she tried using her mental strength to throw the 3 bags of mixed flour Jiyu Chungrui had ground earlier into the image. As expected, the flour fell directly in front of the incense table. Seeing this, she was overjoyed. This way, she would no longer have to worry about how to provide food aid. At the same time, she felt a little lost. Mother God did not hesitate to reincarnate for the sake of these common people, but they abandoned her. It seemed that she had to teach the people a good lesson. Otherwise, Mother God's sacrifice would not be worth it. Chapter 382 Mother God's Manifestation 3. After thinking it through, Ju Ying threw in 3 more bags of flour. After ensuring there was enough food for the refugees to eat for 2 days, she left her interspace. After that, she sat up and scanned her surroundings. After confirming she was still alive, she finally fell asleep peacefully. The next day, just as the sun rose, the refugees in the Mother God temple were in an uproar. A few old women ran out happily and kneeled, raising their heads and shouting, "Mother God has manifested, she has manifested." The men, who didn't believe this at first, ran in and saw the 6 bags of flour in the room after seeing their crazy looks. They cried bitterly and kneeled piously, kowtowing repeatedly. As for why they were given mixed flour, no one was in the mood to think about it. They only knew they could finally have a full meal. After a while, the villagers also knew about the manifestation of Mother God. They were skeptical, but when they saw the bags of mixed flour, they finally believed it. When 6th Aunt Jiyu returned, she said indignantly, "It was originally our village's Mother God temple. One didn't expect it to be taken advantage of by outsiders." "You can't say that." One heard that a few old ladies living in the Mother God temple took out all their private savings and came to town to buy incense for Mother God. Perhaps their sincerity has moved Mother God. Indeed, Mother God temple is right there, but it's been so many years since anyone paid their respects. It's no wonder Mother God didn't care about us. Who said that? One heard that Jiyu Chungrui and his wife dug up white sweet potato seeds from that mountain. If we didn't have the sweet potatoes, think about what kind of life our village would be living now. That's right. Back then, when the drought was so severe, only our village and a few others next to it could produce water. Isn't this also because of Mother God's protection? In short, after this incident, the villagers pushed all the good days to Mother God, causing their faith in her to rise rapidly. On the other end, after Jiyu Chungrui received the news, He returned home smiling and told Ju Ying about it. Ju Ying looked at his unconcerned look and asked, "Why? Don't you believe it? There are no ghosts or gods in this world." Maybe County Magistrate Kong feared the refugees would rebel, so he took advantage of the night to send them some food. After Jiyu Chungrui finished speaking, he looked at Ju Ying's expression and asked in surprise, "What's going on? You believe this?" Ju Ying nodded and told him what had happened last night. She continued, "Do you remember when we lived in the Mother God Temple and I had nightmares? I don't think it was a nightmare, but Mother God reminded me. It was just that we didn't understand her back then." Jiyu Chungrui found it hard to believe, but he knew that Ju Ying was telling the truth when he saw her serious and firm expression. She had an interspace, and they had transmigrated. What else was impossible? It was just that he didn't want to acknowledge this unconsciously. "Don't think about it anymore. I'm hungry, so let's eat." Ju Ying took him to the kitchen, and the two ate directly in the kitchen. After the meal, Jiyu Chungrui only returned to his senses when Ju Ying was washing the dishes. After that, he hugged Ju Ying and kissed her fiercely. Finally, he smiled and said, "Haha, one didn't expect my wife to be the reincarnation of Mother God. How many generations of good fortune have I cultivated to obtain such a great blessing? Silly." Ju Ying pinched his nose and laughed. Jiyu Chungrui grabbed her hand. "You must be silly to be part of something this great." Suddenly, he calmed down and asked, "Does it mean you will be immortal? What will you do without me in the future?" Chapter 383 Mother God's Manifestation. 4. I don't know. I'll just take it one step at a time. As long as we live each day happily, it's okay. If there is a day when one will live forever, one believe my godly abilities will manifest by that time. At that time, even if you want to die, I'm afraid you won't be able to." Ju Ying teased. "That's true. The world is unpredictable, and we just have to live well in the present." Jiyu Chungrui nodded in agreement. "By the way, we're almost done collecting the wild roses. Remembered to prepare 150 taels of silver for me," he reminded Ju Ying. "What do you think about the wild roses? Did you want to store them in the interspace or sell them? I've already sent a letter to the third prince through manager Liu to see if they want it. If they don't, well, save it up. It'll save us the trouble of going back and forth. It's fine as long as you know what you're doing." Ju Ying gave him a small number of silver notes worth 200 taels. After that, one went to the manor while the other went to Sinan village. They were pulled aside and asked whether they knew about Mother God as soon as they arrived. The two of them nodded to that. As a result, the people of the manor and Sinan village all went to the Mother God temple to look around. Even the soldiers were curious. However, who knew how many of them believed it for real? Regardless, the Mother God temple was lively and bustling. The people in the manor and those in Sinan village even pooled money to buy incense from town. Especially the people of Sinan village. The sweet potatoes and meat they had bought had already been eaten, and they were the same as these disaster refugees, basically relying on wild vegetables to survive. If they could get some food this way, they would be saved. The coffin shop in the town was reopened, and the news of Mother God's manifestation spread. As for the refugees, although they were upset that the news had spread, they had no choice but to move out of the Mother God temple. The Mother God temple was emptied for the people to offer incense and prayers. At noon, Uncle Hu came back from buying incense. He found Hu Chun, who was cultivating the wild roses, and said, "Chun, let's try it. I've already bought the incense." "Uncle, do you really believe that?" Hu Chun looked at him in surprise. "I do. I remember when prayers in the Mother God temple were strong when we were young. I also heard from the elders that salvation would appear every time there was a great disaster in the past, so we must try. Just give it a try. If we can really get food, no matter what it is, our lives will be better. Suppose the children hurt their bodies from starving, it will be too late to make up for it in the future." Jiyu Chungrui reminded Hu Chun. He hesitated momentarily and continued, "But since you're going, you must be sincere. One heard that the old ladies who lived in the temple had to offer incense 3 times a day and guard it for 3 days before they could get food. Hu Chun hesitated but finally nodded in agreement. As they said, the adults were fine, but the children shouldn't have their futures let down. Therefore, he said to Uncle Hu, leave a few people to guard the village and bring the rest. Remember to bring every family, especially the children. Since we'll pay our respects, we must show our greatest sincerity. All right, I'll gather the people now. Uncle Hu responded, turned around, and ran off with the joss sticks in his hand. After gathering, Hu Chun looked at everyone and said, I won't force those who don't want to go, but those who go must bring their greatest sincerity. Of course, those going there to watch the fun should not go either. Because we're not going to a temple fair, but a sacred place. This is not a trifling matter, so do you all understand? We understand. Everyone immediately nodded. Let's go. Hu Chun brought his men and solemnly rushed toward Mother God Temple. Chapter 384 Mother God's Manifestation, 5. When they arrived outside the Mother God's temple, they kneeled down with the villagers and kowtowed 9 times. Finally, they walked to the incense table and lit the joss sticks. Once again, he led the entire village to kowtow 3 more times. Finally, he spoke on behalf of the whole village about their plea for food. The people watching from the side began to mutter when they saw this. They had never seen such a formal request before, comparable to meeting the emperor. Although they couldn't see faith itself, they could see that rays of sunlight quickly entered the Mother God statue along with the incense smoke. When the manor's tenants heard about the sincerity from Sinan village, the people who were still hesitating immediately gathered together to buy incense and candles. They went to the Mother God temple to burn and offer incense in the evening. At the same time, Manager Liu followed them with a doubtful look and offered 3 incense sticks. Of course, he had asked for food for his 2,000 soldiers. Otherwise, they would not die on the battlefield but from hunger first. At night, when Ju Ying brought Jiyu Chungrui to the interspace again, she found that the sky in her interspace had many more colorful and auspicious clouds. What is this? Jiyu Chungrui asked in surprise. Is it a rainbow? No, the message Mother God left behind said that this small island is fully enclosed. Clouds can't float in, and it's impossible for a rainbow to form here. Moreover, the color of the clouds doesn't look like it's from a rainbow. Ju Ying shook her head. After that, she probed it with her telekinesis. She didn't expect her mental state to feel comfortable, as if it had been nourished. It even made her feel happy. She couldn't help but be curious about what it was. At this moment, a piece of memory suddenly opened up. It was a sentence that was difficult to understand, and she just read it once to find that her mental energy had begun to absorb the clouds in the sky. She finally understood that what was floating in the sky was not clouds, but faith. Absorbing faith could help her recover her divine power bit by bit. After she understood what it represented, she told Jiyu Chungrui. Ju Ying then sat cross-legged on top of the villa and began to absorb the colorful clouds above. After a while, all the colorful clouds were absorbed, and Ju Ying felt better than ever. She even felt that her strength had increased. After that, she tried punching around. As expected, the punches made a whooshing sound this time, and her moves were smoother than ever. She walked to the front of the warehouse and looked inside, finding it much easier to check the warehouse than before. Finally, Ju Ying looked at the bright images and saw everything that happened in the Mother God's temple today. The people who used to live in Mother God temple still piously offered incense 3 times a day. There was also Hu Chun, his men, and the people from the manor coming to pray for grain. There were also a few people here and there asking for food. However, she couldn't put all the food in Mother God's temple, or they would fight for food. She tried to find the few old women from before. Finally, she found out that they had already moved to the warehouse at the dock because of the rain. This made her feel pleasantly surprised. However, she also knew it was better to teach a man to fish than to give a man a fish. So this time, after giving them 100 bags of flour, she also gave them a few fish baskets. She found a lot of mud loaches and eels in the river, but most importantly, she found fish. Although they were small, there were a lot of them. Ultimately, she threw about 100 wild ducks through the passage. Once they ate the fish from the river, people would soon find out about the ducks as well. Chapter 385 Mother God's Manifestation, 6. Next was Sinan village. Their village had provided more than half the faith points she got today, so she threw 100 bags of mixed flour and 2,000 eggs. As for her manna, she only gave them 2,000 eggs and 20 bags of mixed flour because they already had sweet potatoes. Although Manager Liu helped light incense for the military camp, it did not generate any faith. So after thinking for a moment, she did not give them anything. As for the other random people, they were only given to those who produced faith points. After she finished her work, the wheat she had planted earlier had ripened. Ju Ying collected all of them and ground them into a black powder. After grinding, she took out many dried white potato vines and dandelions, mixing them with wheat bran, corn, peanut cakes, and tofu dregs. She proceeded to grind them into a large amount of mixed flour. Jiyu Chungrui rushed over to help her pick up the bags after she filled them. After they were done, the two sat down on the bags of flour. "Are you planning to keep giving flour?" Jiyu Chungrui asked. "Yes, I can't let them live too comfortably. If they want to eat good food, they must fight for themselves. All one can do is protect their lives. Otherwise, it'll be bad if they develop a lazy personality." "That's true. It's easy to breed laziness if you're too comfortable. It's also easy to breed ungrateful people. The meat in this interspace has been stored for a long time. There's a lot of chicken, duck, and goose in here. Yeah, but let's take it slow. Not only do we have to look at their faith, but we also have to look at their social responsibility and personal character. For example, if the army near the manor generated faith points, I would give them meat. We're kind enough that we don't kill those who ate humans or those with unpardonable crimes. But we won't be letting them off. That's reasonable. Let's hope the white potatoes can spread as far as possible." Ju Ying shook her head and said, "At present, for the seeds to spread around the country naturally, I'm afraid we have to wait for 2 years. So now, I'm just waiting for the third prince to make a move. If he believes in Mother God, we can credit him with spreading the white potato to the masses." She then continued with some pity, "If only one could distinguish the good from the bad. Let's take it slow, and I'm sure Mother God can do so. Otherwise, how else could she become a goddess?" "I hope so." Ju Ying got up and stretched. "Let's go. We should take a shower and go to bed early. Otherwise, you won't be able to wake up tomorrow." "Yeah. By the way, I cooked a pot of bird's nest just now, so let's have some before sleeping." "All right, I'm tired after working for so long." Ju Ying replied and went back to the villa with him. The next day, when everyone saw what was in their houses, they were all overjoyed. Naturally, the news spread quickly. Of course, some people were puzzled. They had clearly paid their respects, so why didn't they receive anything? They began to doubt whether Mother God was fair in handling things. The appearance of such a large amount of food again made Tian Jingzhong, County Magistrate Kong, and the other officials realize that this was most likely food given by Mother God herself. Otherwise, it would be impossible for so many things to be delivered to them without anyone noticing. Tian Jingzhong went to the dock. When he saw that the refugees were all given mixed flour, he couldn't help but mutter, "Flour too? Could it be that even Mother God can't afford anything else? Sir, look at the fish baskets here, Mother God also gave them. I wonder what they mean." At this moment, an old man came over with a fish basket. "A fish basket?" Tian Jingzhong took it and looked at it curiously. He didn't expect it to be an ordinary fish basket from the south. "Could it be that Mother God wants you guys to fish?" he asked the old man. Chapter 386 Mother God's Manifestation, 7. Fishing? There are fish in the river. The old man's eyes brightened when he heard that. Although their lives were a little better now that they had flour, filling their stomachs with no meat was still difficult. If there were fish, they could at least have some protein in their diet. "Let's go and take a look." When Tian Jingzhong heard this, he immediately took a fish basket and followed them outside. When they reached the river, they only found seaweed and no fish. He then thought of something and reluctantly took a biscuit out of his pockets, broke it into pieces, and put it in the fish basket. He then sank the fish basket into the river. At the same time, when Manager Liu got the news, He first went to the manor tenants and saw them distributing the eggs and noodles. He ran to Sinan village after that. After confirming that something had been given to both of them, he asked Hu Chun in confusion, "One also offered incense yesterday, but why didn't one get anything? How did you guys obtain so much food in one go?" Hu Chun told him what Jiyu Chungrui had said the day before, "Maybe it's because of our sincerity. If one is not sincere, Mother God might not be able to hear their prayers. Also, you don't seem to be lacking in food. I also heard that the manor's tenants also went to pay their respects collectively, and they kowtowed just like us. I heard they didn't get much in return compared to us. Is that so?" When Manager Liu heard him say this, he did feel a little guilty. After all, when he paid his respects yesterday, he was skeptical and didn't believe in Mother God at all. "I can only think of these two reasons." Hu Chun nodded. At this moment, Jiyu Chungrui came over with the silver notes and gave them to Hu Chun. Knowing the reason for Manager Liu's visit, he remembered what Ju Ying had said and nodded in agreement. "I think what Hu Chun said makes sense. Why don't you go over and try again? I'll buy some incense now. Do you want to come along?" Hu Chun asked as he looked at Manager Liu. "Let's go. I'll buy some incense first, and we'll talk about the rest later." Manager Liu hesitated for a moment before nodding his head. After that, the two went to town together. When buying incense, he also heard the refugees had obtained a fishing basket and were at the river. He also heard that someone had found wild ducks in the reeds by the river. The two men looked at each other and turned toward the dock on their way back. They happened to bump into Tian Jingzhong with the others and their fish baskets, and they quickly ran over to take a look. There were palm-sized fish in their baskets, as well as mud loaches and eels. "It seems like there are quite many mud loaches and eels in this river," Manager Liu commented with a grave expression. "This isn't good. These loaches are excellent at digging holes, and it'll be troublesome if it breaks the dam. Indeed, I'm afraid all of their natural predators are dead, and those who aren't dead are probably hiding away. This must be the reason why these loaches are flooding the river." Tian Jingzhong nodded in agreement. He took a fish basket and told the old man among the refugees, "I'll take a fish basket and find someone to make the same one according to this. I'll send it back after Thief learned the craft. Feel free to take it. We also know how to make this same basket, but initially, we aren't sure why Mother God gave us this. Now that we know her intentions, we'll go to the mountain and find something to make more baskets." The old man shook his head and replied, "Could there be another layer of meaning?" Manager Liu asked with a pensive look. "What?" Tian Jingzhong asked curiously. "It's better to teach a man to fish than to give a man a fish. Perhaps Mother God wants people to earn their keep as much as possible and not rely too much on her. Why would you think so?" Chapter 387 Mother God's Manifestation, 8. Manager Liu pulled him aside and told him about the difference in treatment between the villagers of Sinan village and the manor. "Hu Chun, Jiyu Chungrui, and I came to the conclusion that the manor is not lacking in food at the moment. That's why Mother God didn't give us much. Since fish baskets were given here, I think it should have the intention of letting them earn our keep." Tian Jingzhong nodded in agreement and said, "That's true. The entire country, or even the entire continent, is suffering from disasters one after another. If we only rely on the help of Mother God, where would so much food come from? Ultimately, we'll still have to rely on ourselves." He then looked at the incense in Manager Liu's hand and asked in surprise, "You don't lack food, what are you offering incense for?" "I'm not starving to death, but don't forget the soldiers outside the manor. They consume a lot of food every day. Without supplies, they won't be able to hold on much longer." "I see. As the saying goes, the emperor never lacks hungry soldiers. Since there's hope now, we can't let them go hungry." Tian Jingzhong nodded in agreement. "Wait for me," he added. "We'll go together at noon. I'll gather all the village chiefs to pay our respects." "Sure, let's go together." Manager Liu immediately understood what he wanted to do. He then went back with Hu Chun to wait for the news. After Hu Chun learned from Manager Liu about the deeper meaning behind the fish baskets, he returned to find Uncle Hu and said, "Uncle, Find a few women who know how to hatch eggs and to find those eggs that can be hatched. Well-raised chickens. When the chickens grow, we can have meat and eggs. I understand, but the feed, it might cost some food from us in the early stages, but we can raise earthworms later to feed the chickens. They will grow quickly. Are you sure it'll work? It should be possible. While working as a bodyguard, I heard people in the mountains feed the chickens this way. Then let's try with half of the eggs. Uncle Hu turned around and went back to work. Conversely, Manager Liu also mentioned raising chickens to the manor's tenants. As for whether they followed his advice or not, he did not care. After resting briefly, he called Chang Shun over and went to the military camp. He called a few group leaders together and told them about Tian Jingzhong's plan. What are you guys thinking? Do you want to go together? We would like to go, but we're afraid of embarrassing the third prince. What's there to be embarrassed about? If it works, not only will you guys get substantial food, but you can also save a lot of money for the third prince. Then let's try. Remember to be sincere. As long as you're sincere, it'll work. We understand. Either we don't go, or we'll have to show our utmost sincerity when we go. At noon, Zhu Ying was drying the firewood in the courtyard. Suddenly, she heard the sound of gongs and drums and walked out curiously. She saw Tian Jingzhong leading a large group of people up the mountains. She couldn't help but mumble inwardly, "It seems like he'll gain a lot of faith today." The village chief and the patriarch looked at each other and asked, "What's the meaning of this? Why didn't they call us?" "I don't know. There's still incense in the ancestral hall, so let's take them and follow." The patriarch answered. "All right, let's hurry up." After that, the two older men quickly brought a lot of their incense and joined the group to pray for food. After Tian Jingzhong saw the two of them, he gave them a simple explanation, "But since you're here, let's go together. Don't get your hopes up. Yes, no matter the result, we are still offering our prayers. I believe Mother God will remember this." Yeah. Tian Jingzhong then led everyone to set up an incense table outside the Mother God temple. He placed the offerings and began to worship Mother God. Chapter 388 Mother God's Manifestation, 9. At night, after entering her interspace, Zhu Ying immediately saw a large patch of colorful clouds floating in the sky, which delighted her. "Wow!" Jiyu Chongrue exclaimed. "All right, you get busy while I'll go and do my work." After that, he crossed the river and headed toward the grasslands. After he left, Zhu Ying sat down cross-legged and began absorbing the faith. It took more than an hour to absorb this time, dozens of times longer than yesterday. It seemed that this time, those faiths weren't only from those who were present but also included the village's faith, represented by those village chiefs. After finishing her absorption of the faith, Zhu Ying went straight to the storage room and checked out what was going on in the Mother God temple through her little light screen. Hey! At this time, Zhu Ying discovered that Tian Jingzhong's body had a faint layer of light covering him. She knew this was a glow that was not from the sun reflecting. She looked at the others as well. The others were more or less glowing too, but with different colors. The various assortments of colors included gold, red, black, and even blood red. Suddenly, a piece of information was transmitted into her mind. She quickly understood that these colors were the light of faith, originally white. A golden hue represented virtue, purple was the might of the emperor, red was good luck, black meant bad luck, and the blood-red hue meant evil. Only people who had done great evil deeds would have it. Although soldiers killed others, as long as it wasn't for an evil purpose, their bodies would have a golden glow of virtue instead. After she understood what all these meant, she was instantly overjoyed. This way, she could choose who to help in the future. She didn't expect Tian Jingzhong to have the light of virtue. It seemed he had been quite successful as a village constable all these years. Thus, she began to distribute food supplies. First, she distributed 200 bags of black flour and 5 pigs to the military. She gave her village 2,000 eggs. As for the other villages, she distributed according to the number of villagers they had. Each villager was given 100 pounds of flour, which was more or less enough to last until the harvest of white sweet potatoes. At the same time, She had also used her telekinesis to turn the person with the thick, blood-red hue into a retard. She filled up the town warehouse with flour for those people who came from town. As for how much she gave, even she wasn't sure. She also gave Tian Jingzhong and manager Liu 200 pounds of black flour and 100 eggs each. Finally, she placed 20 bags of black flour in the manor, followed by some bran, butter, soybeans, and feed for the cattle and sheep. After finishing, she tried to go up the mountains to see the situation. Alas, she found out that she could only look around the Mother God temple and could not explore any further. She tried the other places, but she couldn't look around either. Only then did she realize she could only follow the faith's origin and not any other places. Thus, she exited the light screen and harvested a batch of white rice, purple rice, and glutinous rice in her fields. Zhu Ying then dehusked these batches of rice and stored them in her warehouse. As for the husks, she crushed them and mixed them with some dandelions, chrysanthemums, and others. This was meant to be feed for the various livestock in her interspace. The next morning, everyone was in an uproar again. At the same time, they also realized Mother God was not biased, she just gave less food to those who needed it less. At the same time, County Magistrate Kong, the first prince's spies, and the seventh son of the Su family also received the news. The three immediately reported to their masters, the three different princes. At the same time, manager Liu sent a messenger pigeon to the third prince, telling him that their food supply had been settled for the time being and that he could rest assured. The couple had just woken up when they saw Zhao Cheng, Li Sheng, and Fang Qing coming to their door with a bag of incense. "Are you here to offer your prayers?" Zhu Ying asked in surprise. Chapter 389 Mother God's Manifestation, 10. Yes, we heard it's working, so we came to offer our prayers. Zhao Cheng answered. "Are you guys lacking food?" "We don't lack for now. We're planning to ask for peace." "I see. Come, sit down and eat together. I'll go with you after we're done." "Thank you, but we've finished eating. We just came to visit because we passed by." Zhao Cheng replied as he waved his hand. He then turned around and left with the others. Zhu Ying didn't stop them and shouted, "Come back again when you leave." "Okay, mistress." Zhao Cheng responded and continued up the mountain. After the couple finished their meal quickly, they prepared a bag of fresh vegetables, half a bag of dried white potatoes, and half a bag of dried pumpkin for Zhao Cheng and the others. After sending them off, the patriarch came to them with 5 eggs and said, "The village got 2,000 eggs from Mother God, so we divided them amongst everyone. These are 5 eggs for you too. Although it's not much, it's still a gift from Mother God. Do take them. Thank you for making this trip, Uncle." Jiyu Chungrue thanked him as he took it. "No problem, but I'm ashamed of this. We've been guarding the Mother God temple for many years, but we've never considered paying our respects. One didn't expect that we'd be blessed by an outsider." The patriarch shook his head helplessly. "The world is unpredictable, so don't worry too much. Just be yourself." Jiyu Chungrue replied. "That's true, the past is in the past. However, no matter what outsiders think of us, the Jiyu clan will always be followers of Mother God. Later in the evening, I will gather all the men of the Jiyu clan. We're planning to go up the mountain to offer and burn incense. So, remember to gather at the ancestral hall early." "Sure, I'll be there." Jiyu Chungrue nodded. After sending off the patriarch, Jiyu Chungrue returned and hugged Zhu Ying. He kissed her twice, saying, "If they knew that the goddess they were going to pay respects to was my wife, I don't know what they would think. I mean, you can choose not to go. I'm planning to go. Maybe one can provide you with more faith because of our relationship. Besides, it's not embarrassing to kneel to your wife." On the other side, after County Magistrate Kong sent a letter to the third prince, he asked his officers to run an errand to the various towns. He told all the village constables to bring all their town leaders, as well as every village chief and clan patriarch. He wanted to gather them in Qingshui town to worship Mother God together. At the same time, he informed Tian Jingzhong to set up the incense table and prepare a meal for everyone. Conversely, the third prince had finally received manager Liu's letter. After reading the contents of the letter, he did not believe it. This was because he never believed in these enigmatic things at all. Otherwise, where would the souls of so many soldiers be placed after their deaths? Also, why were those Evilders still alive and about? No one seemed to be punishing them. Zhu Huaiming looked at his expression and knew what he was thinking. After contemplating for a moment, he spoke up, saying, "This matter should be taken seriously. Since Uncle Liu sent us a letter, regardless of the methods, someone has been scattering large amounts of grain in Yunhe County. Although mixed flour is a little unpalatable and rough to the stomach, it has won many people's hearts. I'm afraid that someone did it with bad intentions." As he finished speaking, a messenger ran in and reported, "General, County Magistrate Kong from Yunhe County bears news." "Oh, give it to me," the third prince said, curiously extending his hand. The messenger immediately handed him the note respectfully and then quickly left. The third prince opened the note and read it carefully. The small note, with its tiny words, objectively described the manifestation of Mother God. Of course, it also talked about how Mother God treated everyone differently. Finally, he also mentioned that someone who once ate humans went to offer his prayers to the Mother God temple. The person came back retarded. If it were true, that would be for the best. If not, then who would be doing this? Would they seize the country after buying over the people's hearts? Why don't I go over there and check it out? Zhu Huaiming asked. The third prince shook his head. There's no need with that many people there. Since they don't have any clue, you won't be of any use even if you go. Then, let's just wait a little longer. Didn't Country Magistrate Kong say he plans to bring the entire county to worship Mother God tomorrow? Well, wait for the results. In addition, send a letter to Manager Liu. Tomorrow night, keep a close eye on all the warehouses in the county. If someone is deceiving us, we'll find out by tomorrow night. Roger that. Do sleep early, my prince. Zhu Huaiming turned around and left after that. He wrote a note to Manager Liu and sent it out by pigeon. When Manager Liu received it, he was surprised. He secretly scolded himself for being careless and immediately arranged for the manpower needed. Chapter 391 Mother God's Manifestation, 12. In the evening, after Zhu Ying entered her interspace, she found that the colorful clouds today were just slightly more than yesterday. At the same time, she knew the faith she could get from Qingshui town was at its maximum. She didn't pay much attention and started to absorb them earnestly. After absorbing it, she went to the warehouse. Perhaps it was because the people weren't short of food for the time being that there weren't many prayers regarding food needs. On the contrary, many wished for peace, children, and so on. Of course, some people asked for food, but they asked for fine grain, meat, and other luxuries. Zhu Ying followed the people's faith and found that there were some seriously malnourished babies at home. She would leave some eggs and a small amount of fine grain for the pregnant woman and ignore everything else. On that day, the most concentrated event was the Jiyu clan going up the mountain to pay their respects. However, what they prayed for were peace and safety. It was worth mentioning that the patriarch had faith, virtue, and a faint glow of luck. This made her curious why he had a glow of luck instead of something else. The village chief who came later also had faith and virtue but lacked luck. Jiyu Chengyes' body also surprised her with a faint glow of luck. The one who surprised her the most was Jiyu Chungrui. His body was glittering with gold, almost like a halo appearing on a golden Buddha's body. Moreover, there was a thick ring of fortune around the golden hue, which made her dumbfounded. She couldn't even guess where he got this much merit from. He couldn't have gathered this much in just his previous life. Could it be a stack of merits from all his previous lives? Also, what was up with that glow of luck on him? It glowed so brightly that it looked heaven-defying. After that, she retreated from the light screen. For those who wished for peace, safety, and fertility, without the support of her memories, she didn't know how to give them what they wanted. After that, she collected and washed a batch of peaches before placing them in her villa. After Jiyu Chungrui returned, he washed his hands and took a peach to eat. After taking 2 bites, Jiyu Chungrui realized Zhu Ying was staring intently at him. He touched his face and asked, "Why? Is there something dirty on my face?" Zhu Ying shook her head and told him about what she had seen earlier. "Do you think you're a Buddha who got demoted to the mortal realm because you broke a rule or something? How is that possible? If one were a Buddha, someone would have come to our door after consummating our marriage. Maybe I've been a great philanthropist for 10 whole lifetimes, so my merit is this stacked." "That's true. The answer will be revealed one day anyway." Zhu Ying nodded. After eating the peaches, the couple ground a large amount of mixed flour, just in case. As a result, it was already noon by the time they woke up the next day. The two got up, made a bowl of clear soup noodles, and ate them in the interspace. As soon as they finished eating, they heard the sound of gongs and drums. They immediately opened their doors and looked up at the mountain. Good Lord, look at the number of people standing at the foot of the mountains. It was even more lively than a celebration. From a distance, they could see County Magistrate Kong, Bai Jingping, and the others leading a group of people up the mountains. "All right, we'll probably be busy again tonight," Zhu Ying sighed. "I'm here to help." Jiyu Chungrui smiled and took her hand. "Ahem." At this moment, someone coughed. The two turned around and saw Jiyu Chungye and his wife walking over. Jiyu Chungye was the one coughing. "Second brother, second sister-in-law," the two called out. "Hey, do you want to go up the mountain and take a look?" Jiyu Chungye said. "There are too many people, and they're all organized by County Magistrate Kong. We're not going." Jiyu Chungrui shook his head. "In the future, I'm sure there will be more coming up the mountains to worship Mother God. What do you think about opening a tea stall at the foot of the mountains?" Jiyu Chungye suddenly asked. "Of course you should, but now is not the time. You can choose a piece of land first and prepare now." Jiyu Chungrui answered. Chapter 392 Mother God's Manifestation, 13. You guys rest, we'll go over and take a look. Jiyu Chungye nodded and replied. He and his wife then went to the foot of the mountains after that. At night, when Zhu Ying entered her interspace again, she found the sky filled with more colorful clouds. It was beautiful, to say the least. Seeing this, Jiyu Chungrui automatically went to work while Zhu Ying sat in the villa and began to absorb the clouds. After she finished, she observed the Mother God temple through the warehouse. She was mainly looking at the glow of light above everyone's heads. If there were any Avilders, she could eliminate them and increase Mother God's prestige. County Magistrates Kong and Bai Jingping still had the light of faith and virtue on them. At the same time, black clouds appeared around them, especially around County Magistrate Kong. There was a blood-colored hue between his brows. What did this mean? A fatal disaster? She glanced at the others and was surprised to find two people in the crowd covered in a blood-red glow. Looking at their standing posture and eyes, although they tried to hide it, it wasn't difficult to see that these two people were well-trained assassins. She quickly followed their trail of faith and found that these two had no faith in her. This meant that their purpose was to. Could it be County Magistrate Kong? She immediately looked for County Magistrate's son, only to find him standing guard outside a warehouse. He was staring fixedly at the outside of the warehouse, seemingly waiting for something. Or was there a plan she was unaware of? After that, she retreated and began to distribute the flour to all the villages and towns in the county, £100 per head. At this moment, she realized that more than half of the towns were empty, with some villages having no living creatures left. She didn't leave immediately when she stored everything she was giving in the county magistrate's warehouse. Instead, she curiously stared at County Magistrate Kong, wanting to see what he was doing. At dawn, County Magistrate Kong led his men into the warehouse. He finally smiled when he saw the amount of food that could last for 3 months. Before he could laugh out loud, 2 masked men rushed out and quickly killed his 2 followers. They knocked County Magistrate Kong unconscious and kidnapped him. They brought him to a safe house, and Zhu Ying saw a man wearing a silver butterfly-shaped mask sitting lazily at the head of the table, looking down at County Magistrate Kong. The masked man turned to look at a man who had a similar figure to County Magistrate Kong and said, "Chu Yunkang, Master has already paved a way for you. Whether you can rise depends on your performance. Young Master Liu, one will not disappoint Master's trust. Chu Yunkang immediately bowed. Remember, 111 only give you 3 months. You'll be him after 3 months. The masked man, young Master Liu, clapped his hands after he finished speaking. A person then walked out of the dark. The person walked to Chu Yunkang and took out a pill-like thing. The person stared at County Magistrate Kong and quickly kneaded the pill, and soon, a fake County Magistrate Kong was created. Zhu Ying was shocked, understanding these people wanted to swap Country Magistrate Kong with a fake one. What was their purpose? Considering what they had just said, Zhu Ying understood they were definitely doing it because of County Magistrate Kong's recent achievements. They were targeting the third prince. Young Master Liu looked at the two people who were 99% similar to County Magistrate Kong and nodded in satisfaction. Go, the two of them will send you back. Yes. Chu Yunkang followed the people who had kidnapped County Magistrate Kong and left the place. Because they didn't have faith points, Zhu Ying couldn't follow them. She could only keep an eye on County Magistrate Kong, witnessing him getting locked up in an underground room. Chapter 393 Mother God's Manifestation, 14. Zhu Ying took a solid look at young Master Liu. After making sure that no evil glow was coming off his body, she had no choice but to withdraw from her light screen. After that, she got busy grinding a large amount of mixed flour. The couple then took a shower and left the interspace. Jiyu Chungrui saw it was still early and wanted to exercise with her. However, seeing her absent-minded look, he pinched her face and asked, "What are you thinking about? You're completely ignoring your husband." Zhu Ying returned to her senses and told him about County Magistrate Kong. This is no small matter. If they succeed, not to mention the third prince, I'm afraid even we won't have a good ending. Do you know who this young Master Liu is working for? Jiyu Chengrui's face immediately darkened. I'm not sure, as they didn't mention the person, and I doubt it would be anyone other than the other two princes. We must think of a way to warn Manager Liu and the third prince. It's not easy to do this with our identities. We don't even know the exact location. Jiyu Chungrui paused and continued, "By the way, do you think you can try to remind them of Mother God? I haven't tried it, but it's worth a shot." Zhu Ying nodded and agreed with this suggestion. Sure, there's no need to be too anxious. I don't think they dare make any big moves before completely replacing County Magistrate Kong. Otherwise, if exposed, they will be executed for such a heavy crime. Jiyu Chungrui smiled and pulled her into his arms. Conversely, Manager Liu's men quickly discovered County Magistrate Kong had gone missing. They suddenly saw two masked men dragging the unconscious County Magistrate Kong into a carriage when they had just started their search. They immediately rushed forward, and after a struggle, they saved County Magistrate Kong and sent him back to the county office. After Manager Liu received the news, he didn't suspect that this County Magistrate Kong was a fake. Instead, he strengthened the protection around County Magistrate Kong. At the same time, after receiving the information about food appearing out of thin air from the government offices in the county and the various towns, he immediately sent a messenger pigeon to the third prince. The third prince was shocked when he heard this. He had never expected such a bizarre thing to really happen. After confirming that this wasn't fake, he heaved a sigh of relief. "Cousin, what do you think of this?" he asked Zhu Huaiming. Although there was a batch of food and sweet potatoes from the south, most were transported further to the north. "I'm afraid the ones we have won't last long. Why don't we try it too?" Zhu Huaiming said. The third prince shook his head after a moment of contemplation. Chapter 394 Mother God's Manifestation, 15. That night, Zhu Ying found that another Mother God temple was lit up, but she didn't know the specific location, so she just gave them some random things based on the faith points. Over the next 2 days, the faith points there significantly increased. At the same time, 3 more Mother God temples were lit up. Zhu Ying and Jiyu Chungrui were so busy because of this that they would go to the interspace to grind once they had any time. Zhu Ying was also glad that she had given mixed flour from the beginning. Otherwise, she wouldn't have enough food for everyone. One day, after Zhu Ying absorbed the thick colorful clouds in the sky, she suddenly unlocked a piece of memory about how to enter a dream, how to use talismans to bless others with peace, and so on. There was, however, little room for blessing someone with pregnancy. First, the couple had to be healthy, and then she had to have control over both the man and woman, as well as their sperm selection, in order to get the woman pregnant. This method depleted not only her faith points but also the couple's merit. Otherwise, predicting whether the child could be conceived successfully was difficult, and it would deplete a family's natural luck. After receiving all this new information, Zhu Ying was overjoyed. This way, she could spread the news of County Magistrate Kong's kidnapping. After that, she checked the various mother god temples and finally found the third prince and Zhu Huaiming. Both of them had merit and luck. Especially on the third prince's body, where a solid hue has already formed. The third prince's body was covered in a thick purple aura. At the same time, 3 wisps of black smoke were also invading his body, devouring the purple glow bit by bit. The destined emperor of the Ming dynasty was likely the third prince. She was just unsure which of the other princes was producing the extra black smoke. At the same time, she also realized that the third prince's faith in Mother God was not only thick but also colorful. There was even a little bit of a purple glow in it, which surprised her. She didn't feel any difference when she absorbed it before. She didn't have time to overthink this. She followed their faith and quickly found the military camp. First, she checked the food in the warehouse and was surprised to find only one warehouse that was less than half full of sweet potatoes and dozens of bags of rice. If such a large military camp only had this much food, to be honest, they wouldn't be able to last for half a month, even if they ate sparingly. She thought about the sweet potatoes they were trying to promote. Thus, she gave a new batch of sweet potatoes, harvested over 10,000 acres of land. She also added 100,000 pounds of black flour to the granary and all the existing mixed flour in the space. She also gave away 1,000 pigs and many chickens, ducks, and geese. After that, she gave the third prince 2 dreams. One was of County Magistrate Kong being replaced by a fake, and the other was to remind him to distribute the white potatoes as soon as possible for others to plant. The third prince immediately woke up as soon as she left his dream. After that, he heard the commotion outside and thought something terrible had happened. He quickly grabbed a coat and draped it over his body before running out hurriedly. When he saw that the ground was overflowing with sweet potatoes, he was dumbfounded. At this moment, the general on night duty ran over and said, "Third prince, there are sweet potatoes everywhere, inside and outside the camp. How should we deal with them?" "You mean the entire camp is filled with sweet potatoes?" "Yes, there are also 2 warehouses filled with black flour, one with meat and the other warehouses with mixed flour. Didn't you notice anything unusual with this much stuff placed in our camp? It was already like this when we discovered it. These things seemed to appear out of nowhere." The third prince sucked in a breath of cold air when he heard this. However, after asking around repeatedly, he finally believed that this food was indeed a miracle. This was because no one could make such a big move in his camp without alerting anyone. Judging from the situation of distributing grains, the amount of food in Mother God's hands is definitely limited. Or rather, there were too many people affected by the disaster this time, so her reserves aren't enough. No matter what, these seeds are precious and can't be wasted. Afterward, the third prince took out a rough map of the Ming dynasty and a piece of paper. "Since you're here, gather all the tacticians. Well, calculate how to distribute these seeds overnight and how much each county will get. I feel that we should naturally distribute them to the places with more people first. I've heard that in some places, in addition to refugees, the majority of the officials have fled. Well, do as you say. First, mark down the places with more people, especially Dongyang, where there is less chaos. There's also the south, where we could plant another season of potatoes, which will be beneficial to promote these white potatoes to the masses. The rest will be distributed to the various state capitals." "I understand. You should go to bed first. I will come up with a detailed plan with the rest and pass it on to you then. Let's just go together. There are so many sweet potatoes outside, and there's no way one can sleep now. I'll go gather the others. Zhu Huaiming turned around and left after that. Chapter 396 Mother God's Manifestation, 17. At noon the next day, after gathering the information from all sides, he finally made a distribution map of where the seeds should go. After the meal, the third prince called Zhu Huaiming over and asked, "Cousin, have you sent a letter to grandfather and the others?" "Yes, I did. I sent it out last night." The third prince nodded and told Zhu Huaiming about the possibility that County Magistrate Kong had been switched for a fake. "You're going out in the name of distributing seeds. After that, secretly investigate whether this matter was true or not. Remember to check it yourself personally, and don't let Uncle Liu know about it in case this information is leaked." "Are you saying that there's a traitor among the people there?" "I don't think so, but it's possible that they are being watched. Anyway, it's better to be careful." "But, how did you know about this?" The third prince didn't hide anything and told him about his dream yesterday. "I hope it's just a dream, but one can't help but take it seriously with this many sweet potatoes outside." Zhu Huaiming was shocked. He thought of something and smiled. "Mother God has been taking care of us so well." "Do you think you are?" Zhu Huaiming pointed to a chair at the side. The third prince instantly understood what he meant and replied with a straight face, "Don't talk nonsense. We'll never have a peaceful day if this matter gets out." "I understand, but I think it's time for us to fight back," Zhu Huaiming stated firmly. Back then, his aunt had died of illness, and the Zhu family had quickly been suppressed. If it weren't for the imperial court's inability to live without his father and big brother, the Zhu family would have no descendants. He would never forget the hatred in his heart. A murderous look flashed in the third prince's eyes. "Let's deal with the seeds first. I'll tell you when it's time to fight back." Zhu Huaiming nodded and turned to leave. He had someone load the seeds and set off. The third prince took charge and began arranging for the soldiers to ship the seeds by sea and river to the various state capitals. At the same time, he also wrote a memorial to the emperor, explaining the planting of the white sweet potatoes. He also paid for people to start repairing the Mother God temple. On the other side, General Zhu of the border, Zhu Fenghuai, received Zhu Huaiming's letter. After reading it, he was stunned. He called his eldest son, Zhu Huayu, over and handed him the letter. "What do you think of this?" "Father, even though Huaiming is a glutton, and has a little out of tune sometimes, but he won't joke about this kind of thing, and it's worth noting the third prince is with him. Well, no once we ask him, and he doesn't need to joke about this kind of thing." Zhu Huayu commented excitedly. "Yes, is the Mother God temple on Mount Baiyun still there?" "It's here, but it's so old that it's beyond dilapidated. Send someone to renovate the Mother God temple and send this letter out. If it's really true, we'll go up the mountain to pay our respects." "Yes, I will make the arrangements." Zhu Huayu turned around and left after that. On the other side, when Zhu Ying woke up again, she found her room was different. No, it couldn't be said that it was different, but everything was clearer, as if she was looking at everything with a magnifying glass. She got out of bed and walked outside. Looking up at the mountain, she could clearly see every blade of grass and tree. Zhu Ying was initially shocked, but she soon remembered the divine sense mentioned in fantasy novels. She closed her eyes and tried looking around with her mental power. Sure enough, she could see every blade of grass and every tree within a 10-mile radius, with even the fish in the water clearly visible. Zhu Ying then shut off her mental power and opened her eyes. As expected, the ability to see far beyond her views had disappeared, but it was confirmed that her vision was obviously much better than before. Chapter 397 Mother God's Manifestation, 18. Jiyu Chungrui approached her and saw her standing in a daze in the courtyard. He went up and hugged her from behind. "What happened?" "Something good. I can now use my mental power, or rather, I've gained the spiritual sense mentioned in those fantasy novels." Jiyu Chungrui was stunned by her words. When he realized what she was talking about, he asked excitedly, "Really? It's true. This might be something one already had a long time ago, but it was never discovered. When one found it today, it was capable of reaching out a radius of about 10 miles. That's great news. It's like a radar, and it'll be much more convenient for us in the future." Yap. By the way, there are still some dandelions, plantain seeds, heart-piercing lotus, and other medicinal herbs left untouched by the refugees in the mountains. Let's go up the mountain to look for them after dinner. No problem, I'll call Chengxi over as well when the time comes. Jiyu Chongrui said. Okay, let's take a shower first in the interspace. Ju Ying turned around and went back to her room. The two of them entered her interspace, and after taking a shower, they made a bowl of soup noodles and 2 poached eggs. After eating, Jiyu Chongrui called Jiyu Chengxi over and entered the mountains, with a zhuang following. This time, because of Ju Ying's spiritual sense, their harvest was bountiful. At the same time, Ju Ying once again scattered some wild vegetable seeds, especially lettuce and spinach. These two would be ready to eat when autumn comes along. 3 days later, the emperor received the third prince's memorial through a secret passage, and he froze after reading it. He didn't expect that there were indeed gods in this world. Would Mother God know about what he had done before? Would she find trouble with him? However, he quickly shook his head. There were many famous rulers, tyrants, and power struggles in history, but he had never seen any of them punished. It was clear that she would not interfere in these things. As for the authenticity of the memorial, he did not doubt it. After all, no matter how capable his third son was, he couldn't conjure up so many grains and seeds out of thin air. Besides, he wouldn't have the guts to lie to the emperor. He looked at eunuch Li, who was looking at him worriedly, and asked, "Li, how much do you know about Mother God?" "Mother God? You mean the goddess worshipped in the Mother God temples?" "Yes, that's her, I think. To be honest, I have always heard from the older generation that every time there was a great disaster, she would provide disaster relief and food to the refugees. However, I have never seen it in person. However, I've heard that there are rumors of Mother God in the market, and some of them have already gone to the Mother God temple to offer incense. Did they get anything? I'm not too sure. Send someone to investigate and give me a definite answer at this time tomorrow." "Yes, I will make the arrangements." Eunuch Li left after he finished speaking. After the emperor read through the memorial again, he frowned. The promotion of sweet potato plants was a major event in the future. Why did Mother God choose his third son? Was it because he had already been promoting the sweet potatoes before, or was there some other reason he didn't know? Thinking of this, he closed his eyes and rested. A moment later, he opened his eyes and called out the head of the guards, Xiao Heng. He then had them check on the prince's situation. The following day, the emperor had just returned to his study room after the morning court session when Chief Xiao walked in. "Your Majesty, as far as I know, the first and fourth princes received news of Mother God's manifestation 2 days ago. However, they didn't believe it, so they commanded their subordinates to spread the word and allowed commoners, particularly beggars, to go and offer incense. It appears that they have yet to receive a definitive answer." Chapter 398 Mother God's Manifestation, 19. Did it fail? After the emperor heard this, he became thoughtful. It didn't only work for the third prince in the Dongyang province, many others had also been given something for their prayers. So why did it fail in the capital? What was the reason? He picked up the third prince's memorial and read it carefully again. Soon, he focused his attention on 2 sentences. One was to be pious, which meant that when offering prayers, one had to believe in Mother God wholeheartedly. The second was that Mother God would only care for the genuine refugees and not just help anyone. As for the capital, no matter what, it was still under the feet of the emperor. There were many large families here, and which of them didn't have grain in storage? They all had at least 3 years' worth of grain, so the capital was generally never short of food. It was just that there was a distinction between those better off than others. Therefore, it was unrealistic to ask Mother God for food. Your Majesty, Your Majesty. Eunuch Li rushed in at this moment and kneeled while shouting excitedly. The emperor looked at his excited face and knew something must have happened, and it was a good thing. He asked with anticipation, "Take a breath and speak slowly." Eunuch Li nodded. After a moment of silence, he said, "Mother God has manifested. She has answered some prayers." "What do you mean? Are you sure?" "There's news from the beggars that 100 sacks of noodles appeared out of thin air where they lived last night. However, it's the kind of flour mixed with grains and vegetables." The third prince had mentioned this. Although it was a little rough, it could help alleviate hunger, and this was also what Mother God had given the most to the refugees. Also, a few families got eggs and noodles. One heard that the white and snowy noodles are better than the fine noodles in the palace. Eunuch Li finished as he took a deep breath. "Oh, what kind of family?" the emperor asked thoughtfully. "They are from the slums. I heard that one of them has a seriously ill family member, and the others either have pregnant women or babies." The ill, pregnant, and baby. After the emperor heard this, he suddenly understood. These three kinds of people all needed nourishment, especially pregnant women and babies. They would most likely lose their lives if they didn't eat enough. He thought of something and said to Chief Xiao, "Inform the soldiers to go to the slums and inform them that anyone who dares to snatch the food bestowed by Mother God will be killed without mercy." "Yes." Chief Xiao responded, then left. He almost tripped over the threshold when he went out. He also didn't expect Mother God to really show up and give something to her followers. The emperor's mouth twitched when he saw this, and his heart wasn't calm either. Soon, he thought of what the person had said before, that the first and fourth princes had received some information 2 days ago. "Tell Xiao Dezi to inform the eldest and the fourth to come to my study as soon as possible to see me," he instructed Eunuch Li. "Yes, Your Majesty. I will have Xiao Dezi make the arrangements." Eunuch Li responded, slowly stood up, and left. After he left, the emperor sat on his dragon throne with complicated feelings. Honestly, he was both respectful of and afraid of Mother God. He respected her identity and her kindness. If she had not acted in time, even if the Great Ming could survive, it would at least be in turmoil for a few years, and there might even be a change of dynasty. He also feared her prestige would surpass his, the emperor's, or the entire imperial families. That would pose a threat to his rule. However, the news of Mother God's manifestation spread in the capital and soon reached every corner of the Ming dynasty. It was too late for him to stop it now, so the only thing he could do now was to pay his respects. Chapter 399 Mother God's Manifestation, 20. The word respect sounded simple, but there were many ways to do it, and there were also different levels of respect. From the looks of it, Mother God was much more helpful to the people than Buddhism. At least she would help when something happened. Thinking of this, he suddenly had an idea. Since he couldn't afford to offend Mother God, he would flatter and worship her with the people. It would not only prevent him from garnering the wrath of Mother God but also win the people's hearts. In a short while, the first prince and the fourth prince arrived one after another with their foreheads covered in sweat. After the emperor had someone serve them tea, he asked, "Have you heard about the Mother God's manifestation?" "I heard about it, but only the beggar was given mixed flour. The others were given very little." The first prince nodded. "Yes, many people are dissatisfied now. They say that Mother God is treating them differently." The fourth prince chimed in. "I heard that you received the news 2 days ago. Don't you know the reason why Mother God treats them differently?" the emperor asked after taking a sip of tea. When the two brothers heard this, they looked at each other and panicked. They immediately got up and kneeled, saying the same thing. "Father, we did receive the news, but we didn't believe it at first. That's why we spread the word and let people try it." Although their words were slightly different, they all had the same meaning. The emperor nodded in satisfaction, and his requirements for his sons were low. As long as they did not lie to him, he was pleased. "You may rise." "So, do you know the reason?" "I have some guesses." The fourth prince immediately chimed in and told the emperor about the speculations he had heard from Dongyang province. The emperor nodded. "Your third brother also thinks so. He has put it into practice, and it has worked. After he finished, he handed the third prince's memorial to them and said, "You guys take a look." Yes. After the first prince received it, he read it carefully before giving it to the fourth prince. However, his expression wasn't good. After reading it, the fourth prince was shocked, as he didn't expect Mother God to give his third brother this many things. The emperor looked at their expressions and knew their people had not passed on the news to them, and he was immediately satisfied. Otherwise, he was afraid that his reign as the emperor would be coming to an end. At the same time, he decided to send 2 people to Dongyang province to investigate what they were up to. "What are your thoughts?" he asked. "Father, in my opinion, Mother God is a caring and loving goddess. We should vigorously promote and worship her." The first prince bowed. The fourth prince was stunned momentarily, but he quickly understood what he meant. Since his father had already read the memorial, he knew everything and had made his decision. At this time, they had to raise Mother God's status and weaken their third brother's achievements. Otherwise, if they were to suggest downplaying or sabotaging the third prince, it would just give them a reputation of pettiness and disgust their father. After that, he agreed, saying, "Father, one have a suggestion. Since third brother can get the seeds, why don't we hold a large-scale worship ceremony? With your status as the emperor, wouldn't we be able to get even more and better seedlings?" After the emperor heard this, he hesitated momentarily before standing up and saying, "Come, let's go find the Empress Dowager." After he finished speaking, he turned around and walked out. The first prince didn't think much of it. After all, the Empress Dowager and Empress were usually in charge of the royal family's prayers to the gods. As for the emperor, besides offering sacrifices to the heavens, he never took part in leading prayers to his ancestors. The fourth prince looked at the emperor's back with disdain because he knew the emperor wanted to push the Empress Dowager out. It would be preferable if they could obtain something, but even if they couldn't, the emperor's reputation would not suffer. Chapter 400 Mother God's Manifestation, 21. The Empress Dowager was trimming a bonsai in the room. After learning the emperor's purpose for coming, she was shocked and asked with surprise, "Did Mother God really appear?" "Yes, the third prince has already verified it. Has also obtained a large number of sweet potato seeds and is now spreading them everywhere. So I've come to ask, what do you think of this matter?" the emperor asked. After the Empress Dowager heard this, she handed her scissors to the palace servant and asked the father and sons to sit down. She asked firmly, "So your intention is for me to make a trip to the Mother God temple? Right now, the country is in turmoil. I really cannot leave the palace, so you and the empress have to lead this." The Empress Dowager immediately understood what he meant. The emperor wanted to preserve his reputation, and so did they. When she burned incense and prayed to Buddha, to put it bluntly, she was praying for her state of mind and her heart. In addition, she could temporarily hide from all the commotion and have some peace, so she was naturally happy to do that. However, since Mother God manifested for real and treated people differently, who knew what position she held in Mother God's heart? What if Mother God didn't appreciate her prayers? However, the emperor's reputation had to be protected. She sighed and replied, "Originally, I shouldn't have rejected this, but my body has not been healthy recently. Otherwise, I wouldn't have personally repaired the potted plants in my room. So, it's better to let the empress take charge of this matter." The first prince was delighted when he heard this and looked at the emperor. If this matter fell on his mother's head, wouldn't it also benefit him? Since his third brother could get the white sweet potato seeds, he should get something better. The fourth prince, however, revealed a mocking expression in a place where no one could see. The emperor was slightly disappointed but still asked, "Mother, have you called for an imperial physician?" "I did, and it was Dr. Ju. He said I'm short on energy and anemic, which is especially bad for such hot weather. I'll be fine after resting for a while." The Empress Dowager replied, "That's good. I'll have someone send you some tonics so you can recuperate. If you feel any discomfort, remember to let me know." The Empress Dowager smiled and nodded. "Mother's illness is not worth your concern. When I really feel uncomfortable, I will let you know." That's not right. You are my backbone, so whether it's a serious illness or a small matter, you shouldn't hide it from me. Okay. By the way, have you guys had breakfast? Do you want to stay and eat? No, we still have to go to the Empress place. The worship of Mother God has to be done as soon as possible. The Emperor stood up and said. Seeing this, the Empress Dowager did not keep them. After a few polite words, she told her personal palace servant to send them out. After that, the three of them went to find the Empress. The Empress hesitated for a moment, but she agreed despite her reluctance. However, she had her concerns, so she did not let the first prince get involved. Instead, she informed all the women to head to the Mother God temple together. The next morning, after the Empress and the others gathered at the palace gate, they were headed to the Mother God temple. Because they had all received instructions, they all bowed and prayed sincerely. When Ju Ying saw them at night, she was shocked, especially by the glows on their heads. All 7 colors were present. One of the older women had a powerful blood-red aura, and it was evident that she had killed many people. The Empress was also eye-catching. She had almost everything except faith and virtue light on her body. At the same time, her blood-red aura was not weak. However, the status of these 2 people meant they couldn't be touched simply, especially the Empress. So, she decided to draw out the fear in their hearts. Chapter 401 Mother God's Manifestation, 22. As for what they wanted, it was the seeds. However, although more than half of them looked like they prayed sincerely, they did not produce any faith points. Therefore, she placed 6 groups of Hudan chickens outside the palace gate, each containing 1 male and 5 females. She also placed a few batches of fruit tree seedlings and some flower seeds that weren't available in the country. When the Emperor, who hadn't slept, received the news, he didn't know whether to be happy or worried. If he were to claim Mother God wasn't answering their prayers, she did give them something, a rare species that didn't exist in their country. However, these were only luxury goods that the wealthy needed. Which ordinary citizens would raise these for their livelihood? Especially the flower seeds, weren't these things that only women enjoyed watching? Thinking of this, he shivered. Could the Empress and other women not represent the imperial family and the Ming dynasty? Maybe only male offspring could do it, otherwise, how could it be so different from what was given to the 3rd prince? Your Majesty, look at this chicken. It's gorgeous. Eunuch Li pointed at the rooster and said. The Emperor only took a glance and absent-mindedly replied, tomorrow morning, split 1 group of chickens among each of the members of the royal family. The rest will be sent to a manor to be raised and planted, and we will see what they are. Yes. Eunuch Li responded and immediately ordered his men to take the things away. During the morning court the next day, the Emperor discussed with all the ministers. Finally, he decided to take the members of the royal family and hundreds of officials to pay respects to Mother God. Therefore, the Emperor first sent the first prince to repair the Mother God temple, especially the statue. After the repair, it had restored its former glory, looking solemn and kind and, most importantly, very pleasing to the eye. Mother God's statue's appearance alone had attracted many believers. On the 2nd day after the repairs were completed, the Emperor brought all the members of the royal family and hundreds of officials to the Mother God temple to carry out his worship. When Ju Ying saw the Emperor at night, her eyes flashed with complicated feelings. Because the evil aura on his body was quite strong, it was evident that he had taken many lives. Moreover, there was a lot of black aura around his body. It could be seen that he would not have a good time in the future. More importantly, the purple glow around him was less dense than the 3rd prince's. The purple aura on the bodies of the few princes, who followed closely behind the Emperor, was faint, just like the Empress. As for the rest of the imperial family, there was no need to mention them, as there were almost none. This assured her that the next emperor chosen by heaven would be the 3rd prince. So, in order not to cause trouble for the 3rd prince and for the country to recover quickly, this time, she gave him high-yield wheat, high-yield cabbage, and radish seeds. The main thing was that these seeds could be planted in the empty land in the north as soon as possible. Moreover, these plants had already been planted, so there was no need to promote them further. The next day, the emperor and the officials looked at the piles of wheat seeds inside and outside the courtyards, and they got so excited. They needed wheat seeds the most because their previous batches of seeds were destroyed by 2 years of drought and they could hardly grow again. "Your Majesty, there is a letter here." At this moment, a guard walked over with a piece of paper. "Oh, bring it up." The emperor stood up in excitement. Eunuch Li immediately ran over to take the letter. After confirming there were no problems, he handed it to the emperor. It was printed in traditional Chinese, and the content was about how to grow these winter wheat, cabbages, and radishes reasonably and scientifically. After reading it, he passed it to the officials and laughed. "I'm sure with the new planting method of these seeds, our Ming dynasty will be able to recover half of its vitality after the wheat harvest next year." Chapter 402 Mother God's Manifestation, 23, The Emperor is Wise. Long live the Emperor, long live the Emperor. The officials immediately saluted and flattered him. "I must thank my beloved ministers for your support," the Emperor laughed. Afterward, he looked at his uncle and said, "Imperial Uncle, 111 have to trouble you to make a trip to personally distribute these seeds. There's no grain shortage in the capital at the moment, so we only needed to keep some seeds. The rest will be distributed to the places where the third prince's white sweet potato has not been promoted to. This way, production can be restored as soon as possible, and the refugees can return home as soon as possible. I will heed your orders." The sixth imperial king immediately stepped forward to heed this order. Although this task was slightly heavy and cumbersome, it had great significance, and he was quite willing to do it. It could also increase the prestige of his King Xian's residence. Remember, it must be a fair and just distribution, and you don't have to give face to anyone. In addition, I'll send 5,000 soldiers to escort these seeds. "Thank you for your understanding, Your Majesty." The sixth imperial king responded and retreated. As this matter passed, the following memorials were filled with bad news. Most of them were about revolts and riots in various places. This time, the emperor sent out the first and fourth princes. After giving them each 10,000 soldiers, he had them organize the garrison troops in various places to suppress the rebellions. Those who surrendered would be pardoned immediately, and those who stubbornly resisted would be executed on the spot. At the same time, they rebuilt all the Mother God temples. Then, he asked the people from the Ministry of Works to expand and increase the number of Mother God temples outside the capital, making it more convenient for people from all sides to pay respects. After the court session, the emperor received a memorial from Zhu Fenghuai through Chief Xiao. After learning that Mother God had settled the military provisions for the second half of the year, he was finally relieved. Thus, he sent an imperial edict to the Southwest General, the Empress Brother and the Marquis of Dingan, asking them to request military provisions through the Mother God Temple and build more Mother God temples in various parts of the Southwest as soon as possible. Suddenly, Mother God temples were everywhere, and Zhu Ying was so busy that she could only sleep 5 or 6 hours a day. Fortunately, she no longer needed to absorb the faith manually as it would go directly into her body. Nearly a month passed, countless Mother God temples were erected throughout the country, and the incense offerings were becoming more frequent. However, Zhu Ying did not give them any food whenever the rioters or insurgents asked for food. Also, most people who once ate human flesh started to have an illness. She executed them and then told the local officials in their dreams to burn the bodies. Her action helped King Xian a lot. Many people who initially didn't want to go back to suffer the riots and cannibals returned to their hometowns to farm after that. The Ming dynasty had also temporarily settled down. However, the Liao dynasty in the north, the Western Xia in the west, and the east provinces on the island in the east were still in deep waters and suffering. Knowing that the Ming dynasty had food, they immediately launched a war to snatch it. However, the Ming dynasty was now strong and robust, so the aggressors were the ones exhausted from the war. These countries didn't gain any advantage but were unwilling to retreat, so the stalemate continued. On the other hand, Because livestock farming was the Liao dynasty's primary food source, they didn't even have anything to eat, as most of their animals were frozen to death. This was why they had to fight even to their last breath. In the end, they were still defeated. The general in charge watched as the soldiers became weaker and weaker and their morale lowered. Seeing that they were already at the point of life and death, he braced himself and looked for their eldest prince. "First prince, we can't continue fighting this war. Otherwise, if we lose people, our country will be occupied. What can we do if we don't fight? We don't even have any animal fodder to eat. How are we going to survive? Didn't the Ming dynasty benefit from Mother God because they worshipped her? Can't we worship Mother God too?" Chapter 403 Mother God's Manifestation, 24, Bastard. What about our tree god? But look at what has happened to our great Liao. The tree god didn't appear to help, but Mother God of the Ming dynasty did. Even the first prince was helpless after hearing this, knowing his general was right. If this stalemate continued, the Ming dynasty would definitely launch a counterattack. At that time, they would be unable to take the offense and likely have their country occupied. I can't make that decision. I have to ask the emperor for permission. He sighed. We have to be quick. Our soldiers can't hold on much longer. The first prince gritted his teeth and finally nodded in agreement. He immediately sent a letter, using their eagle to bring it to their palace. After reading it, the emperor of Great Liao did not reply immediately. Instead, he went to the tree god temple and kneeled devoutly, but he didn't get any response. Ultimately, he replied to the first prince with a glimmer of hope, instructing them to ask for peace and invite a mother god statue back to build a mother god temple. The day the first prince received the reply, he brought 10 trusted aides to visit a temple. After Zhu Fengzhuan heard the first prince's request, he was stunned for a moment before he agreed with a smile. Although their country had won the battle, they were also exhausted. Moreover, they did not have enough soldiers at the rear, so this was not the time to fight to the death. Besides, they could still steal a status even if he didn't give it to them. He couldn't stop that at all times. Therefore, after signing a ceasefire agreement, he gave the first prince 10,000 pounds of mixed flour to hang on to and asked his people to prepare a statue of the mother god. Because they would be transporting this statue a long distance, he chose to find a top carpenter to carve the wooden statue with the best yellow pinewood in the local area. At the same time, he quickly reported to the emperor. After receiving his affirmative reply, the statue of the mother god was notified to Great Liao as soon as it was finished. The first prince personally came to invite them back and built a mother god temple in the town near their base. He led all his people and soldiers at the border to sincerely offer incense to Mother God. Zhu Ying happened to be busy in her interspace at that moment. After sensing a lot of faith entering her body, she was stunned momentarily and quickly checked through the warehouse. When she saw that it was the people of the Great Liao, she was astonished but still gave them a lot of flour after a short pause. She went into the first prince's dream and warned him that she would take back the flour if he continued to provoke a war. Chapter 404 Mother God's Manifestation, 25. However, Zhu Huaiming also knew that the first prince had arranged this matter. Therefore, he had deliberately leaked the news to the people the emperor had sent to investigate the first and fourth princes. After the emperor received the news, he was furious. No matter what, County Magistrate Kong was an official appointed by the imperial court, so how dare the first prince harm him? As a result, the first prince, who had just returned to the capital after pacifying the rebellion, was grounded for 3 months and had his salary suspended for 3 years. At the same time, the empress was also grounded for 3 months. When the fourth prince found out that the emperor's people were in Yunhe County, he immediately called the 7th son of the Su family back, and the rest of them went into hiding. At the same time, Zhu Huaiming and the others stayed obedient. One day, Zhu Ying was collecting chili peppers when Zhu Huaiming came over and checked the chilies that were about to be thrown out. There are bugs in chili. The taste of these bugs is sure brave. Everything in the world has a counter. No matter what it is, It must have something against it. After Zhu Ying finished speaking, she looked at Zhu Huaiming, who had lost a lot of weight. Did you go to the mines? How did you lose so much weight? Not exactly that, but it wasn't easy either. By the way, where's brother Jiyu? Why is the door locked? Zhu Ying thought of Jiyu Chungrui, who was still reading in the interspace. She paused momentarily and replied, if he's not home, he's most likely out in the mountains picking herbs. If you're in a hurry, you can go home and wait for him, but he might only return in the evening. Forget it. 111 go to the manor to find Uncle Liu, and 111 come back tomorrow. Sure, we'll go over to find you tomorrow. Alright, 111 see you tomorrow. After Zhu Huaiming finished speaking, he greeted the patriarch and led his men to the manor. The patriarch, helping her harvest the chilies, said, he slims down every time one see him. It's really not easy being him. It's not bad to be an ordinary person. Zhu Ying concluded. The patriarch smiled and asked, by the way, since your restaurant is closed now, what do you plan to do with so many chilies and cumin? Well, see. Last year, many chilies were sold as seasonings because of the snow disaster. Although we didn't earn much money, we didn't lose any either. This year's river transportation will probably recover soon. If it doesn't work out here, we'll sell it to the north. When the patriarch heard this, he knew that she had a plan in mind and did not ask further. After the sky turned dark at night, Zhu Ying locked her doors and went directly into her interspace. She did not expect Jiyu Chungrui to have already prepared dinner. After the two had their meal, Zhu Ying told him about Zhu Huaiming's visit. You're being risky here. No matter how fascinated you are with these books, you can't just look at them every day. So in the future, it's better to go out as much as possible during the day to prevent damaging your eyes. I know, but these medical books are too precious, and they teach many ways to use medicinal herbs that have already become extinct. I really can't keep my eyes off them. Jiyu Chungrui laughed. By the way, did he say anything when he came over this time? No, but it doesn't look like it's anything urgent. Otherwise, he would have stayed here to wait for you. That's true. Let's go over tomorrow. Oh, how's the chili harvest? It's almost done. But because the restaurant won't be open for a while, no one dares to plant more. That's good. You've worked hard all day. I'll go wash the dishes. After Jiyu Chungrui finished speaking, he cleared the table and got busy. He also made her a pot of chrysanthemum and wolfberry tea. Seeing the wolfberry, Zhu Ying remembered that there was still a batch of wolfberry and honeysuckle on the mountain that needed to be picked. After drinking 2 cups of tea, she collected all the mature medicinal herbs on her mountain and handed them to Jiyu Chungrui to process. Later, she turned around and walked to her warehouse. Follow current novels on Top Novel Full. CM. Chapter 405 Ripened white sweet potatoes. After processing the people's prayers, Zhu Ying collected all the sweet potatoes from her grassland and planted some taro and more potatoes. Lastly, she hunted a few fat wild ducks and baked them into beer-roasted bucks in her oven. The next day, Zhu Ying collected the remaining chili in the morning. It was almost noon when the couple brought 2 roast ducks to the manor. Looks like 111 get to improve my lunch today. Zhu Huaiming smiled as he smelled the aroma of the roast duck. You're lucky. We caught no fish by the river a few nights ago but finally caught 2 ducks last night. Jiyu Chungrui replied with a smile. That's so lucky. I'm sure the flock of wild ducks that flew over earlier has almost all been caught by now. Manager Liu agreed. You guys continue chatting, I'm going to cook. Zhu Ying then took the ducks and went to the kitchen. It just so happened they butchered a cow in the manor yesterday, so she stewed a small pot of beef, some cured meat stewed with beans, and then made 3 vegetable dishes. At the same time, Jiyu Chungrui called Chang Shun, Uncle Nyan, and Sun Hongliang over. They all ate together. Sun Hongliang looked at Zhu Ying after the meal, who was already sitting at the side drinking tea, and asked, Mistress, there are many cattle and sheep in the village ready for butchering. In addition, the situation in various places has stabilized. Should we reopen our restaurant? Ju Ying paused for a moment and shook her head. Although it has stabilized, I'm afraid that only a few people are willing to eat at a restaurant. So, I don't think there's a need to open it for now. If there are a lot of cattle and sheep, we can slaughter them and sell them as meat. That's possible. Now that every family is short on oil and meat, we can sell the meat for a high price. It's a pity that there's no pork, otherwise, we could have made a fortune. Manager Liu nodded in agreement. After that, he looked at Sun Hongliang and said, "It's not too late to open the restaurant when the docks business is running. Otherwise, the peanuts we earn are insufficient to pay you your monthly salary. It's not worth it." "I know, uncle. If you plan to sell meat, you can sell mutton soup, beef soup, and their offals. It's cheap and has plenty of fat, so it should sell well. The key is that it saves labor." Uncle Nyan spoke up at this moment. "Brother Sun, you can try selling them outside the restaurant for 2 days and judge the public's reaction. If it can be sold, then well continue. If not, then wait. However, you must be careful being on the streets. Don't leave too early and return too late." "I understand. You guys continue chatting, and we'll take our leave." After Sun Hongliang finished speaking, he stood up and said goodbye to Ju Huaiming and Jiyu Chungrui before leaving. Then, Chang Shun and Uncle Nyan also took their leave. At the same time, they also brought their plates, bowls, chopsticks, and other things into the kitchen. After chatting for a while, Ju Huaiming brought up the topic of wild rose tea. Jiyu Chungrui got up and brought him and manager Liu to Sinan village. When Ju Ying saw this, she also went out for a walk. After seeing that the sweet potatoes were growing well, she gave Sun Hongliang a few more words of advice and went back to the village. When she returned at night, Ju Ying learned that Jiyu Chungrui had taken 20 pounds of wild roses, and Ju Huaiming wanted to sell the rest in the capital. The following day, Ju Huaiming brought her a large piece of beef and requested it be made into beef jerky. He had a free lunch in the afternoon and left the village with the beef jerky and wild roses. In the blink of an eye, nearly 2 months had passed, and the first batch of white sweet potatoes had been harvested. Beef and mutton were constantly being sold, but not in large quantities. Including the county and town, half a cow or 2 sheep were sold on average each day. On the other hand, the mutton and beef soup was gone quickly every day. Every afternoon, it would be sold out in less than 2 hours once the store was opened. Follow current novels on Top Novelful. CM. Chapter 406 Borrowing Money. What was worth mentioning was that during this period, Constable Zhong, who was relatively free, would come over to Jiyu Zi's place to make his presence known. The patriarch and his wife quickly understood Constable Zhong's intentions. However, as long as he didn't stay overnight or force his way in, no one would interfere with their affairs. Jiyu Changye and his wife built 2 tiny houses at the foot of the mountain because of Mother God Temple's reconstruction, selling tea and incense there. The business would not make them wealthy, but it was decently prosperous. One day, while Ju Ying and Jiyu Chungrui were harvesting the white sweet potato vines in the field, the village chief approached them. "Yo, you guys are starting already?" "Yeah, since we planted early." Jiyu Chungrui stood up and asked, "One heard that Grandpa Qian's family planted quite a lot of sweet potatoes this year?" "That's right. Our next year's worth of food depends on these white potatoes." The village chief smiled and continued, "One came here today to buy some beef from you guys since harvesting sweet potatoes is strenuous. We should at least nourish ourselves, eh? That's not a problem. I'll get someone to bring half a cattle's worth of meat here to sell tomorrow morning. Anyone who wants it can buy it at the village entrance." "Alright, it's a deal then. You guys go ahead with your day." The village chief turned around to leave after he finished speaking. Ju Ying quickly stopped him. "Grandpa Qian, remember that we will buy white potato vines from you. Remember to keep them for us if you don't want them." "No problem, I'll give you more than half when the time comes." In the evening, Ju Ying went to cook dinner after collecting the white potatoes. Jiyu Chungrui walked around the village and told them about the beef coming tomorrow. At the same time, he also mentioned their intention to collect sweet potato vines. This time, the situation differed from last year, so many people promised to sell their white potato vines to the couple. The next day, when the meat arrived, the people started harvesting their white potatoes too. After drying the white potatoes, Ju Ying and Jiyu Chungrui carted the white potato vines from home to the manor and began harvesting the white potatoes there together. Because they were planted at different times, it took them a month to harvest everything. After all the seeds were collected, County Magistrate Kong collected the excess and distributed it to areas with fewer seeds. After they were completely done, river transportation also officially began. Those who were coming to the villages to collect white sweet potatoes were the first to come by boat. Apart from the families in Shanghe village who had sold some, the other families would rather sell their children than white potatoes after the famine's devastation. Also, Ju Ying took the opportunity to sell a batch of cattle and sheep. When she had just received the money and had not even warmed it up, Father Jiyu came to them to borrow money. Jiyu Chungrui looked up at him and asked, "Father, are you considering buying a boat?" "Yes, now that everything is going well, it's time to get a new customer base. I want to take the opportunity to strike and snatch some customers before others can." Father Jiyu nodded and explained his reasoning. "Of course, you can join us if you want," he said after a moment of hesitation. After the couple looked at each other, Jiyu Chungrui shook his head and replied, "We don't know anything about the transportation business, so we won't participate. But even though we're father and son, since you're borrowing money for business, you'll have to leave me an IOU." "No problem," Father Jiyu said after a short pause. "When I return the money, I'll give you 30% of the interest. Forget about the interest, you can just pay us back when you have more money." "No problem. Do you have a pen and paper?" "Yes, please wait a moment." Jiyu Chungrui went for a pen and paper and asked him to write an IOU. After pressing his thumbprint on it, Father Jiyu borrowed 20 taels of silver from them. "I hope they will have a better result this time," Jiyu Chungrui commented after sending him back. "Otherwise, these 20 taels of silver will be wasted." Follow current novels on Top Novelful. CM. Chapter 407 Entering the Capital for a Reward. 1. It has nothing to do with us, but with this IOU, we have a reason to reject them the next time they ask for more money. Ju Ying paused momentarily before continuing. "Oh right, take some time to collect radishes and cabbages as a cover. Since there's no time to plant them in the manor this year, we have to let these workers have vegetables to eat in winter somehow." "All right, I'll remember this." Jiyu Chungrui nodded. After that, the two of them entered the interspace to get busy. Turning to another end, the third prince had received an imperial edict from the emperor to summon him back to the capital to receive a reward. This was for the deed of promoting white sweet potatoes to the public. At the same time, the emperor asked him to bring some white sweet potato seeds back to the capital. However, there was no mention of Jiyu Chungrui and his wife. Is it because he has forgotten, or is he deliberately ignoring it? The third prince could not help but mutter about this. After thinking about it, he decided to ask about it. Putting aside the fact that he had failed twice, he did not have the face to meet the couple again if he couldn't at least reward them for their merits this time. The white sweet potato seeds they were bringing back came from their village. If he had no reasonable answer, how could he have the face to go over and collect the seeds? The emperor fell silent after reading the third prince's reply. He had intentionally ignored the couple and didn't expect the third prince to remember this. However, with Mother God bestowing many other agricultural seeds on them, the contributions of the Jiyu family's Jiyu Chungrui and his wife could be downplayed. Therefore, the emperor decided to stop ignoring their achievements. So, he issued an edict to let them enter the capital together to receive a reward. After the third prince received this edict, he heaved a sigh of relief. After informing his generals, who stayed behind to take care of the military camp, he personally led 5,000 soldiers to Shanghe village. At the same time, Jiyu Chungrui brought his medicinal herbs to town and requested that Dr. Luo reopen their clinic. He also hung up a sign saying that they were collecting medicinal herbs. Afterward, The couple brought Jiyu Chengxi along and began to dig up various medicinal herbs all over the mountains. One day, they came down from the mountain and saw manager Liu waiting at the door. The two of them were surprised momentarily. Thus, Jiyu Chengrui said, "Uncle Liu, is something the matter? Let's talk inside." Manager Liu looked at the people on the street and hesitated. Jiyu Chengrui heard that and went inside with the medicinal herbs. Ju Ying opened the door and invited manager Liu into the room. She poured him a glass of cold water and said, "Uncle Liu, do say what you need to say. Do you still remember when the third prince took the seeds from here to the south to promote them?" "Of course. It happened last year. How can I not remember? I don't think I need to elaborate on how important those sweet potatoes are. So, the emperor is rewarding him for the act of promoting sweet potatoes to the masses. The third prince has also called for you two to return to the capital to receive the reward together. At the same time, he was told to bring back some more sweet potato seeds. At present, only the manor has a surplus of them, so we had no choice but to draw from the manor." Manager Liu explained his visit. "Sure, but this time you must leave behind 1,000 pounds worth for each person. If anything happens, it won't be enough if it's anything less than this." "I understand. The emperor only said to bring some seeds back and didn't say exactly how much, so we'll just gather as much as we can." "All right then, when will the third prince come over for the seeds?" "The third prince has already arrived in the town, bringing many people with him this time. He isn't here alone, so we'll bring a convoy over tomorrow morning to pick up the sweet potatoes. Pack your luggage and follow the convoy to town." "Why are you in such a hurry?" After speaking, Jiyu Chengrui hesitated and asked, "Can we not go to the capital? I don't see any necessity to receive a reward from such a long distance." "Yeah, it's almost winter. It's torture to travel so far," Ju Ying echoed. The key was that they had no power to rely on in the capital. If they entered the capital, they would have to tuck their tails between their legs, so they might enjoy their good time here in the village. Follow current novels on Top Novelful. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.